first of all, thank you again for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me, buddy.
Did you go to the movies as a kid? I always like to just sort of begin by that. Were there any favorites or influences if you did?
It was like crazy. I mean, when I was like, I remember when I was about 11 or 12. I mean, I'm sure I went to like animated movies when I was a kid, and I don't really remember. I remember going to Disneyland and doing all that stuff. But I think when I first started liking movies, it was like I saw Jack Nicholson in The Shining on TV. I was like, what the heck's going on here? Who is that guy? And then I think I got into like comedies. Like it was like movies like, you know, early Eddie Murphy that I really loved, like Beverly Hills Cop, Trading Places. I loved Dan Aykroyd. I loved Bill Murray. I loved Ghostbusters and Stripes and Vacation. I loved early Chevy Chase. I found that I almost loved going to the movies for comedians rather than dramas. So it's funny that I ended up more on the other side of things. It's weird.
Absolutely. I understand that you, I don't know if it was originally acting or if it was just sort of commercial type stuff, but you were doing this from a very early age. How did it start for you, and when did you know that it was what you wanted to do sort of for real?
Well, I was like 11 years old, and I was at my school, and I remember doing like a drama class. It was like a demonstration class, and I guess in the audience that night we were doing this performance of these scene studies or whatever. There was a couple agents in the audience, these commercial agents, and I remember I did good, I guess, in my scene, and the agent said this kid would be good in commercials. My mom was a little nervous about it, and then I remember I went out on some commercial auditions, and I ended up auditioning for this movie, The Gate, which was this crazy horror movie that most people don't know.
The Gate of Hell. The Gate of Hell.
But like crazy people like film nuts and Quentin Tarantino and really, you know, movie buffs like that know it and go, The Gate! And I always feel embarrassed because I was a 12-year-old little chubby kid. But then I didn't really act again after that, and for like 4 years I was auditioning. I did some TV shows, I did some TV movies, started getting into more theatrical auditions. I couldn't get a film, you know, I was getting close callbacks, but I couldn't get a film. So then I was frustrated, and when I was 17, I was going to go to college. I auditioned for Juilliard and NYU. I got into both, which was nice. Yeah. And then at the same time I was offered, like life, I was offered Young Indiana Jones in a TV series by George Lucas, and I was offered The Power of One by John Avildsen with Morgan Freeman and Sir John Gielgud and Armin Mueller-Stahl, and it was I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to piss George Lucas off. I didn't want to piss the schools off. I was kind of like torn, and I asked my parents what they thought, and you know, ultimately I wanted to be in the films, and so I kept going back to The Power of One, and I thought, well, I want to go to Africa. I want to kind of get out of here, get out of LA. I grew up my whole life here, and that's what changed it all. And I decided to say no to everything. I wrote letters to everybody. I thanked them, and decided to go do Power of One, and that changed my life.
And just for the record, I've read, maybe you can confirm this, I've heard they looked at like 2,000 people before.
Yeah, John Avildsen is pretty intense when he does his casting process, at least for the Karate Kid movies and for Power of One, which was coming off of those Karate Kid movies. It was like early 91, I think. We came out in 92. And yeah, so it was like a major worldwide search, because I think the idea was to find a real, again, English South African kid.
Yeah.
And I, again, was this kid from LA, so I remember the final screen tests, and this guy, that was funny, this reminded me, my agent at the time, and manager said, you know, we're with you if you want to just quit, because this guy is insane, and they're going to audition for another year, Stephen. We can only do what we can do. I said, look, I know this guy now. I said, if I quit, say I'm not coming to boxing training or dialect training or all these camps that we were going to for these auditions, I'm not going to get the part. So I stayed in there with John, and I was basically the last kid standing. I mean, people were falling. You know, I remember it was like Ricky Schroeder was a big deal back then. Sean Astin had just, I think, done Rudy or was about to do Rudy. You know, there was a lot of, they were the big actors then. And then there was this like really good-looking male model, kind of South African guy who had the accent and everything perfect. The body, he was tall, he looked like a fighter, but he couldn't act. And I was very intimidated because no matter how much I trained, my body wouldn't change. I was 17. I'm getting a little bit of a cut here, but it's not. This guy's like Fabio, Adonis over here, and thank God he couldn't act. So ultimately, I think it was my acting that sold John, and he gave me the part. I did a big Warner Brothers screen test, and that was the end of that.
And how did that one, looking back, how did that one change things afterwards?
It was just my first big lead. I was working with great people. It was a big movie. Armin Milchan had produced it. It's Warner Brothers. You know, the movie wasn't a blockbuster when it came out, but it was a very well-respected movie. It's a movie of mine that people still, at the premiere of somewhere, will come up and go, "The Power of One's my favorite movie."
Yeah.
You know, it's just one of those movies where not everybody's seen it, like Blade or something,
Right.
but the hardcore people love that movie.
Right.
It's touched their lives, whether they're for Australian, English, American. And I think just being in Africa for 6 months and learning to speak Zulu and working with Sir John Gielgud and, being in Europe, going to Europe and shooting those scenes with him in London and then traveling Europe with my friends after. I was like basically away for a year. I came back, I felt like I was a new man. I felt like I was this is what it's like to be a man, a young guy, on your own, not just living at home. And then I got another English part right after that, Backbeat, which, of course, they wanted an Englishman to play. It was just so weird that I kept getting English parts when I was just from L.A.
Right. And it was, I guess, right before you had that whole wave of English sort of up-and-coming young
Yeah,
actors.
like Jude Law, like Ian Softly, who directed Backbeat. I said, who else is screen testing? He said, well, this great guy, Jude Law, and Ewan McGregor. These were big actors now.
Yeah.
And they weren't, for some reason, getting the parts there in their time, So I guess we're around all the same age, because I know Jude. I don't know Ewan as much, but I know Jude. He's really nice.
Well, you had that after Power of One and Backbeat. There was sort of like this period where it was a wide variety of roles, but all pretty interesting parts that, I know I shot Andy Warhol, and I'm not gonna list them all, but leading up through Blade, and then you've said in other interviews that there were some, at the time Blade was sort of it seemed like the right move, but looking back you have some doubts about that. Is that...
Well, no, actually, when I took the part, I went through this lengthy negotiation with New Line, and it was almost like I thought that I was, I don't know, Robert De Niro when I was still a kid. I don't know. I'd had this unique situation because I was, in my mind, working with the best actors ever.
Right.
I'm meeting Bob De Niro, who's producing this little movie that I do. I'm working with Jack Nicholson and Michael Caine on a Bob Rafelson movie and Judy Davis. I'm then working with Harvey Keitel on this movie called City of Industry. I'm doing all these movies that weren't big hits, but they were with the guys, and so I learned all this great stuff so that when it came time to Blade, it was the first concept movie that I'd ever really gotten into a negotiation. When I mean concept, it was the first movie about a comic book or about something other than people, other than a thriller. Or, I'd always done movies about people or characters or period films or stories or deep, and this I felt like I was going to kiss my career goodbye, doing this movie. Even though I had good instincts about Steve Norrington, who led me down the right path, and he ultimately made my most successful film at that time. So, probably ever, But I didn't think my career was over after, because we opened really big and we knocked off Titanic, and then it became this kind of very big deal for me internationally, worldwide. It was kind of not necessarily with the critics, but with the fans, and it was a new kind of thing for me. And then I got excited about it, But then immediately after Blade, I didn't want to do another one, so then I went back into small things, small movies that never came out, and it was almost like every time I hit, I then would go back and do something really small. I did this little movie De Niro produced called Entropy, which didn't even have a release date, and it was a really cool movie with U2, and I played a director in it, and it didn't happen. Some people really liked that film, but it wasn't until probably 4 or 5 years ago, 4 years ago, probably around World Trade Center time, that I really wanted that part in World Trade Center. Oliver said I was too cute and didn't think of me in that role. I said, let me just try to become this guy. I'll come back as this blue-collar ESU worker, Scott Strauss. I'll come back with a mustache. I'll look different. I'll talk different. This is what I do for a living. He's like, all right, come back and see me. So I come back and see him. He's like, and he didn't give me that part until 2 days before I shot. I went off, I did something else, and I came back. I got a call to come to the set of World Trade Center in L.A. They'd finished New York. I met with Oliver, and he said, all right, you want to do this? I said, yeah, I want to do this, man. Had the mustache and all right, you're doing it. You're starting a week. And I met Scott, and I did that movie, and it was a smaller role for me, but it was the kind of lead of the end of that movie. 9/11 meant a lot to me. I was in New York during 9/11. Scared the hell out of me. It was a big impact on my life and on everybody's. And I played that part, which had a good heart, a guy with a good heart again, a guy with, you know, and I was trying to just do good parts again. I didn't want to, you know, something with a love story maybe, something with, why am I always playing the bad guy? And then finally I, you know, up until then I did movies like Felon that I produced, which again didn't have a great release, but was a really, you know, well thought of movie. New York Times gave it a great review, you know, Jeffrey Lyons, all these great critics were very supportive of that movie. Unfortunately, it was kind of an acquisition deal with Sony, and they'd already had they knew they were going to make their money on DVD, so there was no real chance. And they also didn't really know that there was this big street cred for the movie. You know, we were downloaded just under Dark Knight at that time.
Wow.
You know, it was this monster, huge movie, and we were this little prison movie, $5 million movie, maybe $4. So basically, after Felon, which is what Sofia saw, it was not a movie I would think Sofia would watch, but her and Thomas, her boyfriend, watched it and really got sucked in by it. And there is a vulnerability in that movie, even though it's a very physical performance, it's a very edgy performance. There's an immense amount of vulnerability between me and Val Kilmer's character, which I really love in that movie. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I dealt with some personal stuff. My mom was getting sick. Mm-hmm. She was not happy, and then of course great things happened at that time, which Michael Mann offers me, Public Enemies, mm-hmm. like the fourth part in that, and I was wanted to work with Michael Mann, but I kind of couldn't. I was going to not do it because of my mom, and I explained it to Michael. I said, I know you need a lot of prep. I know you demand a lot from your actors, and I'm down, and I'd normally go to war for you, but here's what's going on. And I got to say, he could have done anything he wanted. Everybody mm-hmm. wanted to be in Public Enemies, work opposite Johnny in those parts. And Michael was a real mensch. Him and his wife, they really were supportive of me. They gave me the time I needed. I asked my mom what I should do, and my mom wanted me to go and do it. Thought it would be good for me to go to work and not just be hanging around. Mm-hmm. And in the end, it was good to go to work with those guys because it was a great group of people, and it was long, 5 months. Mm-hmm. But I met Mac Brown, who ultimately produced Somewhere. Mm-hmm. I met some great people. Johnny was really sweet to me. The guys were great, so our gang... We didn't really work much with the cops, but the gangsters were really became tight, and ultimately that led to out of nowhere just this kind of butterfly dropping in my lap from Sofia.
I hope I can just interrupt for a second because I think it's a great listing of all the different things that you have been doing, which is why I wonder what you think of when you see people describing Somewhere as a quote-unquote comeback. I mean, you never really left.
I always say, look, when somebody like Sofia, it took a woman, and it took somebody as prolific as Sofia to be the first person that says, no, Steven, mm-hmm. he's the guy. He's maybe hasn't done this love story recently, but he's got a sweetness that I can find in Johnny, that I can bring out. And I really thank her because it means something personally, because not that I wouldn't have ever gotten a part like this in the future. I'm sure I would have gotten to play more roles like Felon, because look, I'll create them if they're not going to give them to me. Right. But at the same time, it meant a lot personally at the time because of my mom, what I was going through, and this is the perfect part. My mom would have loved to see me play. So my friend, one of my favorite filmmakers of my generation, for sure, if not out there, is the one that did this for me. And so I said to Sofia, she made me cool again.
I was going to say,
all these magazine covers, and they wanted me to take my shirt off. I'm like, what the hell? You forgot about me. And then she says, no, you're always cool. It's your rediscovery. So rediscovery is kind of the word that Sofia came with, and that feels better than comeback. But comeback's fine. I mean, it just makes me sound like I haven't gotten a job in 10 years, and I've been working my tush off.
Absolutely. But, well, and I guess related to that, is there anything to it? There's some of these articles I tried to read as much as I could have, past interviews and stuff before this. Some people are saying that you felt at one time that it might not come back, that it might not come back to what it was. That things might. Was there ever a frustration that you might not get back to that level?
I get frustrated sometimes just when I tried so hard to not let you pigeonhole me. I think I made it so clear that it made it even hard for my star to rise.
Yeah.
It was just left of center, always these things. And in the end, that still made people lose their imagination. And I come from a place where it's supposed to be about your imagination. Right. It's supposed to be about the body of work. That's what I've learned from all these great actors I've worked with. It's all about, at the end of the day, when we go, wow, he worked with this person. Wow, he did this. Wow. And that's why I did a John Waters movie. That movie's not turning me into the $20 million guy, but I don't care about that. I got enough money. Right. I wanted to work with John Waters.
Yeah.
I want at the end of the day to work with. I'd love to work with Woody Allen. He's never cast me. I'd love to have a Woody Allen movie on. I'd love to be in a good Woody Allen movie. He makes so many darn movies now. But I'd love to work with just the artists that to me have those unique voices. I'd love to work with Quentin. I mean, he's one of my favorites. I'd love to work with the Coen brothers, Paul Thomas Anderson. I mean, these are the people I'd love to work with. But they're very few and far between, and these guys don't make movies all the time. And at a certain point, if they're not commercial movies, they even have a hard time getting their movies made.
Well,
and so, like, for me, I get frustrated. And I think back then, before I got on a good rhythm with directors again, I was just making money, and I made a few movies that were garbage, and it didn't make me feel good. And, luckily, I never really embarrassed myself. I made couple genre movies that just, weren't as good as what I could bring.
Right.
But all the time, I always had good actors with me. That was one thing I always tried to do.
Yeah.
Whether it was not a good movie that I did for Avi Lerner, that nobody's ever heard of. But you know what? I got Bob Hoskins in there, and I had some really good people with me. Or, so that was always important to me. So, but, for me, this time, because I got a really great shot here, I really want to be careful, and I don't want to do anything that I don't feel passionate about. I want to make a living. I want to do well, but I'm willing to, I want to get dirty in these characters. I want to really do some good stuff. I want to, this is what I love to do, and now if I'm going to get the chance to do it again, I want to really do it. I don't want to just do a great movie like Somewhere and this gem, I think, and then, I did do a couple movies after, but they were so different but I just mean as far as like the next Somewhere, the next Johnny Marco, the next real character. I mean, I did a Sandler comedy, which was amazing. I had fun. I'd never been in a Hollywood comedy. I did this big Tarsem Immortals movie with Frida Pinto and Mickey Rourke because it felt somewhat original in that sword and sandal world. I felt Tarsem was going to do something different, and I hope he does. Who knows? I'm nervous, but until and then I've done a little experimenting here and there, but I've been waiting. I didn't want to take the wrong thing.
Well, let me, if I can, focus on Somewhere for a second, because this is where we gotta people. I think a lot of critics, as we have discussed, they're taking notice. A lot of moviegoers who have had a chance to see it early have taken notice. The hell with the Hollywood Foreign Press Association if they haven't, but
and SAG.
And SAG. Well, screw them too. But
look, Sofia made a very sophisticated movie.
Right.
A movie that hasn't been made in a long time. I think the New Yorker got it right. It's really, they said it was the most radical film to be made in years, out of Hollywood, and it is really. I mean, the pacing, some of the stuff she does, but yet the experience is so beautiful and so poetic, and you really feel things, I think.
So where did you knew her for a while? Where did you guys first meet?
We met through a mutual friend, Zoe Cassavetes, who was John Cassavetes' daughter, and pretty much best friends with Sofia. They trust each other immensely. Yeah. Zoe's just started directing too, and they've always been my good friends, but kind of from a distance. We didn't talk on the phone all the time, but when it came to my birthday party, if Sofia was in town, and after Virgin Suicide, Zoe was in town, Zoe would bring Sofia, they'd come to my party, and I always felt like a real support from those two. I felt just, I never dated them. There was no bad will. There was no, drama. Right. It was just, these are my good friends.
Right.
And then to see Lost in Translation and just, I love Virgin Suicides. I love Sophia's Short, but to see Lost in Translation, to this day, it's one of my favorite films. I just think Bill Murray was genius in that movie, and the part was just written for him, which it was, and the movie was about him. It was his character study, too. Different than our movie. But it was the best movie of the year, I thought, and Bill Murray got completely robbed that year. And I remember being invited to a few of the festivities around that time. I went to some parties. I was so proud of seeing Sofia up there, first American woman to be nominated, all this stuff, and whatever the title was. It just was so exciting, and she seemed happy that I was there. She was married at the time to Spike, and again, didn't see her a lot after. She was busy. We did have a great night in London where we went to a Halloween party together because Zoe left early and Sofia was there for one more day for interviews, and she asked me if I would go to this party, and we had this great kind of Halloween together, and she brought me a mask, I'll always remember. And then cut 2 years later, I haven't seen her. They all moved. Both girls moved to Paris. Zoe got married. Sofia had a baby. She made Marie Antoinette. Right. And so then years later to get this call that Sofia's making her fourth movie. What? I had done some work with Francis. He had called me and invited me up to Napa in a very intimate setting where we did some shooting, actually, of this movie that he didn't end up making. And then I did some work with him on Youth Without Youth, which he ended up using Tim Roth. I was a little too young. I needed that Johnny Marco makeup to pull that off. But, you know, it was kind of, in a way, the Coppola family, in a weird way, has always kind of rescued me at times where I was depressed or sad. Or.
Well, you say you got a call. I'm curious. How did it come about from the beginning? You get the call. You then get a script, which I understand was significantly smaller. I don't know if you know the page number, but a lot smaller than your average script.
Yeah.
And not a lot of dialogue, but you sounded like you were immediately pretty taken with it. Bless you.
Shit.
Bless you. No problem.
I need a tissue.
Oh, hell no.
I need tissues, yeah. Sorry, could you blow my nose and then
God bless you. No problem.
answer that question for you?
Sure. Is that right, though? I saw a 48-page figure. Is that what it was?
Yeah, she hates when she told me not to give a number, but I'll give you some.
All right.
I'll give you an idea.
All right.
You're pretty close. I got a cold in Toronto. It was fucking freezing. Man. We did a premiere there last night. Good. They're pretty smart there. Because of the, I think, TIFF and stuff. They have a good movie-going audience there.
Very much, yeah.
Except for one girl in the audience. But anyhow, yeah. So anyway, yeah, to answer your question, the way it first went down was I got a phone call from my agent, David Unger, who received a phone call from Fred Roos, who's somebody that I knew and somebody that supported Felon a lot, really liked it. And he's really a guru. I mean, he's really a legend, Fred Roos. He's cast everything from The Godfather. You know, I mean, he's basically his main... He's not really the nuts and bolts producer. He's kind of, his job is the casting. And he really, you know, Sofia to this day really relies on Fred, loves talking to Fred. She's their family. Fred's been involved in every one of her movies, and he's an amazing person. He actually cast the original Public Enemies with Warren Oates and cast Harry Dean Stanton in my part, Homer Van Meter, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I got a call. David Unger said, I have something interesting to tell you. I said, what? He said, Sofia Coppola's doing a movie, and you're one of a few people that she's thinking about. I said, what? What's the movie about? He said, they didn't tell me anything. Fred just told me that it's about a guy living at the Chateau Marmont, an actor, and he has an 11-year-old daughter. I said, Jesus, you know, it sounds good. And I said, well, who's in it? You know, is anybody else in it? I thought maybe it's a third lead or fourth lead. And he said, look, that's all we know. You'll get the script, you know, I think from Sofia directly or from American Zoetrope, and you know, she wants to meet with you. So about a week and a half later, I get this really cool envelope, which I still have, my first summer script, because it came to me so cool. It had this American Zoetrope sticker on it. It was black when I picked it up, but it was real thin. Yeah. And I was like, oh boy. And I had heard Lost in Translation was a short script, which she won the Oscar for, you know, but I'm used to 120, these fat, overwritten, exposition-filled scripts that are usually, the first cut's 3.5 hours, and all the stuff you hear about and all these things. Well, Sofia works the opposite way. This script was significantly shorter than Lost in Translation. And yet, when I read it, it was a beautiful screenplay. It felt light. It felt like I had a lot of questions. I made notes, but it felt like the whole movie was there, you know. And then I needed to meet with her to ask her, because it felt like she was going to play with time. Like, there's a scene like Johnny smokes a cigarette interior in his hotel suite at night by himself. Reading that as one line in the script, I didn't know that would be a 4-minute scene. You know,
I heard the Guitar Hero scene was another one.
Yeah, Guitar Hero. You know, these guys fiddle around with Guitar Hero while Sammy's on the couch asleep. You know, that's a 4 or 5 minute sequence.
Right.
You know? So like, I read the script. I immediately kind of, you know, normally you wait for a company to kind of say, look, Stephen, we would like to fly him to Paris. The call wasn't coming in right away. So my agent said, you know, Stephen, if you want my opinion, I think you should just go. And I liked his vibe. It was also Oscar week, which I don't need to go to these parties. Yeah. It always depresses me anyway. If I don't have a movie that's in the talking, you know, it's exciting for those people, but kind of a bummer for you if you know, not involved. So I'm not a big, you know, I don't really go to the parties every year unless I have a reason to, unless I'm promoting a new movie or go to the Vanity Fair party with John Waters if I have a movie coming out or if Sofia wants me to attend, you know, yeah, of course. So anyway, I was like, you know what? I'm going to make a call. I'll call you back, David. And I called my friend in Paris. I said, do you mind if I come tomorrow? And then I called Sofia and I said, Soph, you know, I don't know if you're available, but I could come as soon as Monday. She's like, really? She said, well, that would be awesome, but where are you going to stay? I said, well, I'm going to stay with a friend in St. John, man. You know, you guys don't have to worry about that. I'm just so excited to talk to you about this. And she's like, well, Tuesday sounds great, and I'm around all week. We could have dinner with Zoe. I said, excellent. So I bought a ticket. Out of my pocket, I didn't care. Because I felt like if we maybe attack this, maybe I can sneak in and grab this before all our other competition is going to start. I felt like we had an inside track from Fred Roos. And I felt like Fred wanted me. And so knowing that, I also know that Sofia knows that her father likes me. You know, I kind of knew, and Sofia likes me. She was on my 30th birthday. I said, this feels good. You know?
A lot of pieces, yeah.
And I know I could play this part, you know. And so I flew out there. We had a great week. It would have been a great week even if she had said the part's going to George Clooney. But we're going to play it a little older. Whatever. I would have had a great week, but she didn't. At the end of that week, on the year of my mom's anniversary, which was a little strange, she gave me the part. And
the anniversary of her passing.
Yeah, 1 year. And I felt my mom that night. And it was a double whammy. It was, God, what a great honor. What a great thing for my career. But ultimately, it's like, wow, my mom was with me here. My mom was in Paris. She just said, here's the part. Like, now you got one to go and do what I've been asking you to do. And I was just like, this is just too weird, you know. My mom had this fixation with me and Steve McQueen and wanted me to play flawed characters maybe, but that have heart, that have a soul. And she just always would say it. And that's basically what I'm playing in this movie in every frame. So.
Wow, and I've heard stuff, I mean, I won't force you to go into it, but just stuff like the Eiffel Tower lighting up and all this stuff, it's crazy that it all happened at that time.
My friend Mark, who's got a beer down here, he's got a shot of that when the Eiffel Tower went. He took it on his Blackberries and he blew it up for me, and it's quite an amazing moment because, you know, I don't know if you've ever lost somebody, but it's hard, and when you lose a parent, you know, you hear stories of, oh, you'll feel them, Stephen, you'll feel. I went through a year on public enemy, well, I didn't feel nothing. And I was empty, I was upset, I tried to feel her, I didn't feel her. I felt her that night, and it came from my toes, into my diaphragm, into my heart, which is where all my acting comes from. It comes from the diaphragm, it all comes from us, even if we're playing different people. And that's what I had to trust it. So I hung up on Sofia, and I realized I got to call her back. So I called her back and said, I'll take it. Are you serious? And she's like, yeah, why'd you hang up? I said, well, you know, you don't know this. You knew what happened to my mom earlier in the week, I told you, but I just wanted you to know that what today is the day. And she was like, oh my God. And I said, yeah, but I'm happy, you know, I'm really happy. And it was a really nice, it wasn't sad, it was a really happy moment with my mom for the first time, and happy that I was going to work with such a great director, and happy that I had a role that was the ultimate character of the year, I thought, because not only is it Sofia's movie, but it's a movie in which she's going to allow the time for me to do this incredible character. You can get a great character on paper, but if the cut needs to be faster, if we got to cut through grit faster, or we got to get this, you know, it's running times long, you might lose those moments. I knew I was going to get all my moments. So it was the ultimate part.
Well, with regard to the process of actually making it, first of all, did she tell you what, aside from your being available, like what made her think that you were going to be right for this part?
I don't know. You know, during the week she had said things that were always good to hear, which when you hear from a director, like, don't cut your hair. It's always a good, I always find that's a good one, because why do they care if you cut your hair? If they don't want you in the movie, they don't care if you get a mohawk. But Oliver said something to me, too, don't shave the mustache. I always knew I was kind of still in there with that. You know, and that's always just a good sign, I find, as an actor, when you really want a part that you're maybe not the front runner for. You know?
Is it true, though, also, I mean, you, I believe, I read that you have some half-sisters that are quite a bit younger, and also that you got along really well with her daughter. That can't have hurt.
Yeah, no, the last meeting I had in Paris, after our dinner with Zoe, after me and Sofia's initial couple meetings where I got all my questions out, does Johnny do this? And she's like, oh yeah, of course, I just didn't want to write that down. You know, because she's directing, she holds it all back. That's why the scripts are short. Plus, there's not really ever any exposition or cliched, so we never have those big speeches. It's all done with one line or two lines instead of everything. You know? But yeah, I have two sisters, 10 and 12, and it's weird because when they were born, I was off making movies. They're little babies. I was kind of still annoyed with my dad that he left my mom for this woman, and had my own kind of, you know, who were they, you know? But because I came in a family with just my brother, it was kind of really amazing as they grew up. At 8 and 9, I started going, wow, these are really cool little girls, and I like having sisters. And then through losing my mother, I felt like, thank God for these little sisters, because they bring life into a family that was missing a big part once my mom left. So I love my sisters, you know, and I protect them, and it's weird how as I get, you know, so like I told Sofia about my sisters that she didn't know about, and then I have this unique thing with Caitlin. I was able to pull a little bit from that, And then going back to your question about Romy, her daughter, my last meeting with Sofia, even though I was anxious and she still hadn't said, I want you to play Johnny Marco in my movie, was to come over to her apartment and meet Thomas, her boyfriend, and the band, Phoenix.
Yeah.
And they were all hanging out because I think they had just finished recording the album. And, excuse me. Sorry?
No problem.
They just finished recording the album. And I went in there. It was very casual, just having a couple beers. And Romy answered the door, this 2-year-old. I think she was 2 in a couple months. Beautiful little blonde girl. And I was like, hey. And I'd never met her. And she immediately took my hand and took me into her room. And Sofia's like, this is Romy. Romy, this is Steven. I'm going to have a meeting with Steven. And she says, okay, but after I want to go in my room and show my room. I'm like, I can't not follow this cute girl. And then I'm thinking, this is so weird. Is this like a setup? Why I'm playing a father maybe in her movie? So I'm going with it. I get in the room. Now Romy's laying on this sheepskin carpet and like kind of flirting with me. Giving me this smile. And we had this like kind of connection. And I was like, this is crazy. And she's like showing me her toys. And really intense, you know. Like, and Sophia's like, okay, Romy, Steven's going to come. I was like, I got to talk to your mom. You know, it's important. And she's like, no. About 20 minutes goes by, I'm still with Romy, and Sophia's like, all right, Romy, that's it. And I said, all right, I'm going to go see your mom. You want to come with us? Now I'm talking to Sofia, the father of Sophia's baby, Thomas, the band, and Romy's laying on my shoulder now, kind of sleeping. And I'm just, it's the weirdest thing in the world. And I don't know if that was the clencher, but I'm sure it didn't hurt.
It couldn't have hurt, yeah.
And it's just weird because now that I'm 37, there's a lot of young people around me. Whether it's I'm starring with Elle Fanning, who's 11, my little sisters, Romy, Sophia's children, grandchildren, my friends having babies. I'm a godfather. You know, it's weird, and I'm playing a father. It's trippy. You know?
Absolutely,
I like it.
I just want to list a couple things that I've heard about in terms of the preparation. If you can maybe just take it as a package, but Sofia, I believe I've read that she wanted you guys to. Or maybe it was just you, I don't know if Al also, but Paper Moon, to watch that. Also, obviously the aspect of living in the chateau. Just different things that could mentally prepare you. How, and then the last thing was these sort of unique sort of rehearsals that she did. How did each of these things help you to get into the character?
Everything, you know, what I learned about kind of directing on this movie that's different than the normal movie is Sofia... So much of her directing is in the casting, the prep, the people she chooses, this intimate crew she does. And I don't know if I think Lost Translation was similar, and obviously Marie Antoinette was much bigger, and that's why she returned to this venue. But she's a brilliant lady when it comes to just giving me I mean, normally you'd fight to have to stay at the chateau if you're an LA hire, you know what I mean? And she gave it to me. You know, I stayed there for 7 weeks or something. As Johnny Marco, so she was smart enough to know that things at night would happen to Steven as they would to Johnny. So I had dry runs on a lot of rehearsals that were happening to me. Just living at the chateau, if I go down and have a salad with you or do an interview or something, somebody's going to come up or something's going to, you know.
Or the
so
elevator.
She would always, the elevator was I had a total dry run of that scene with this guy, Olivier Martinez. He asked me what room I was in. And he didn't say I met Bono in that room or whatever. Benicio says Bono. But, you know, and for example, with Elle, you know, she said, the first thing I'd like you to do is you're going to pick up Elle from school. Now, I thought Elle would have a guardian there, too. Sophia would come. Normally, a director comes with a camera. She's like, no, it's just you guys. I want you guys to hang out and do whatever you want to do, but you do need to get her back by 6. And drive safe, Steven. And I said, okay. So now I'm driving over there the next morning, and I get nervous. My car smells like smoke. I don't have a Ferrari, but I got a Porsche. I got these hair extensions from my Adam Sandler movie. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I've told the story on TV a few times on these shows, but I think by letting us spend this time together, whether we went for yogurt, whether we went to Color Me Mine, whether I went to a volleyball game at an away game at another campus, we created a trust ourselves so that when we got there, we were a team. And so much kind of like the friendship between these two, even when he's not a stand-up parent and when he's lacking a lot before he makes that change. We had a unique thing that I think was effortless and then kind of became very natural on screen. And I think that was the setup of Sofia. I think also there was one other thing I didn't touch on.
Just Paper Moon, but that was...
Yeah, I mean, she gave me a lot of movies to watch that I'm sure Elle didn't watch, but Paper Moon was obviously something she wanted both of us to watch. And we had a big dinner in L.A. the other night, actually a couple weeks ago. Peter Bogdanovich was there, and I introduced Elle to Peter, and it was quite a cool picture.
That is awesome.
And Peter hadn't seen the movie yet, but I'm sure he's going to dig it. And yeah, she sent me some weird movies too, like Fellini movie with Terrence Stamp. Showed this drunk movie star, kind of the extreme of it. She showed me Chantal Akerman, which was a little bit more behavior acting. Literally, the whole movie is in real time, kind of like we do with the cigarette in a few moments in the movie. The whole movie's that. Yeah. So it was kind of like interesting to just all the flavors, music. When I'm driving around in L.A., just listen to this, Stephen. It might help you think about the movie. Yeah. She's just incredible. You
know what occurred to me? I don't know. This might be silly, but you know the movie Sunset Boulevard, classic movie? That, I guess that is a has-been movie star as opposed to somebody in the thick of it, but they also had to kind of isolate themselves from the rest of the world. But anyway, I know we're running a little long, so if I can just wrap up with two or three, if that's right. I don't mean to keep you, but I know that I wanted to ask you about Johnny's room because that's as much of a character as, and the hotel generally, but the room specifically as anything. Is that the room that you were staying in? And also the decoration, some of the things that you sprinkled throughout the room have stories behind them, I know.
So much with Sofia's detail, because she's telling the story through vignettes and small scenes, behavior, me not saying anything, but saying it with my eyes or my behavior. So as far as the room, I stayed in room 69, which is the exact same layout as Johnny's, only a little smaller. So we were in 59, Johnny Marco's room, the movie room.
Yeah.
So I would walk one flight downstairs when my call time would be. I'd go into makeup and get right into Johnny's bed from my bed, which was amazing.
Yeah.
As far as the set dressing, I mean, Sofia and Ann Ross, who was our production designer, was just so... I mean, whether it was the Petrus bottle here or the pot thing here or the bottles of Propecia in the bathroom, or the details were incredible. The one thing that I do, it was my idea that I really think looks cool in the movie, and made me and Sofia very happy when he saw the movie and loved it, was the Ed Ruscha painting. It was a picture that I'm friends with Ed Ruscha, and I knew Sofia from the Paris trip had this great Dennis Hopper picture of Ed back in the day, and he still looks like a movie star. I mean, he's just a really good-looking guy. And so I sometimes go to Ed's studio and we hang out and, just hang out and maybe go for a beer in Venice and I see what he's doing. He's just so cool. And I saw this thing on the corner of the room. It looked like a print he was working on, like an artist proof. And I'd never seen that painting. I guess it was a smaller painting in the 60s. But it said, "Cold Beer, Beautiful Girls." And I had just gotten the part. And I literally was telling Ed, I got this great part, man. This is like behavior shit. This is a real movie, man. It's like some 70s stuff. He's like, "Sounds great. I love her movies." We were talking, and I said, "What is that, Ed?" And he's like, "Oh, it's just when I do a print, and I make about 12 of these. I give 6 to my printer. I keep 6. I said, would you ever think, this movie I just told you were shooting at the Chateau, and it'd be nice, I know that when I've stayed in hotels for over 3 months, and this guy's probably been there a year, we thought, you accumulate things, you put it against the wall, whether you buy this lamp, or even some people paint the room, and then they paint it back when they leave. I said, would you ever think to maybe let us borrow this, or can I check with Sofia? But I think that's the ultimate picture that he would have bought. Cold Beer, Beautiful Girls. Ed Ruscha, and it also shows that he's interested in art. He's like, "That's a great idea. I'd love to be involved." So I called Sofia. I told her the story, and she's like, "That would be so cool. Let me call Ann." And it was Sofia's idea to keep it in plastic, and then Ann did this great receipt that says Johnny Marco and whatever, $20,000, whatever the print cost. I don't even know what an Ed print cost, but they're pretty pricey. Yeah. And there was only 12 of these, so it's not a big edition. And he gave us the artist proof to shoot the movie with. And he saw the movie at the LA premiere, and I was worried that he missed it, but he called me. He said it made him feel inspired and jump out of his seat. And I told Sofia that, and she's like, "Well, we can just go home and stop these interviews now."
Yeah.
I said, "Yeah, well, we should keep going, though." Right. And then we made a joke. But the truth is, it was just great to...
that's cool.
He's a really nice guy. Yeah, so that was kind of a little something I created, because so much my team gave me, and this was something that I got to add, which was nice.
And if I'm correct, the Eiffel Tower photo also, right, was in there, or no?
That one wasn't in there. Okay. That's in my house. That was more just a personal moment for me.
Collection. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And Francis Ford Coppola paid a couple visits to the set.
Yeah. Every time Francis came to the set, I was naked. I don't know if you've heard that story, but it made Sofia blush, and we thought maybe Francis was thinking we were making like a porn movie or something, or maybe we weren't making a movie. Right. And Francis came to see his granddaughter. He's the producer of the movie, but obviously lets Sofia do her own thing. But, you know, I'm in the shower, I'm in bed with a girl. I'm like, guys, could I just get a towel? Francis, the big man's here, my favorite director in the world. Could I get a robe? So, thanks. And Francis is like, you're always naked when I come by. What kind of movie are you guys making?
That's great.
No, but he was so sweet. And then you'd look over and you'd see Francis with Romy sitting on his lap watching one of my takes. I mean, it just doesn't get any better than that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, I think the last question really is celebrity, which is in a way the subtext of the whole movie, this whole phenomenon, which I did my thesis in college about. It's something I've always been interested in. And one thing that struck me, the way that you can kind of look at it, is 150 years ago, Abraham Lincoln could go for a daily walk in Washington during the Civil War to the Department of War or wherever
without a photo,
without being bothered. Today, a D-list nobody can't get out of a car without somebody trying to shoot their crotch.
And they're shooting those pictures more than they're shooting Daniel Day-Lewis's
Totally.
Yeah.
It's nothing that
it's
to do
weird.
with
Well, that's kind of added to me when you read things like I've mentioned, you know, about my frustration in the past where I almost thought I wouldn't act anymore.
Yeah.
It was just like if I can't be totally inspired and get this feeling like I had when I did Somewhere on that high level, or even with a first-time director, maybe not as big as Sofia, but if I can't be inspired, then I don't want to do it anymore. And the truth is, especially in a world where, when I grew up, it used to be just 10 of us who were up for all these movies. Now it's TV people, reality stuff, all these, you know, it's one big clusterfuck.
Merit doesn't matter.
It's scary. I find the internet very scary. I find it kind of exciting but scary. I'm not a Twitterer. I'm not a Facebooker. You know, I do like my iPad. I like to go on YouTube. I like to see, like, I want to watch Elle Fanning on Tonight Show, which I missed. Bang, and I can watch it. So I'm getting a little more savvy, but that world scares me, man. And I feel like TV and film blended. Then TV got good because writing on cable was like the best writing.
Right.
Shows like Mad Men and shows like The Wire I thought were really great. And I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And I thought, unless I can get this back, I'm gonna maybe start working with you.
Well, but I mean, if you had known that this is the world that, you know, Brad Pitt, for instance, during an interview, somebody said, you know, if you knew that you were going to have to live your life eventually under a microscope like this, you can't do anything. Your privacy's gone. Would you still have signed up for it? And he said it basically, you don't know what you're signing up for until you're past the point of no return. Do you feel that it's a compromise you're happy to deal with, or is it just brutal?
Yeah, and I would take the biggest you know, nightmare of it all. If I'm getting to do what I love to do, because I think the more power you get as an artist, the more creative freedom you can have. I mean, look at somebody like Sofia. Yeah. If she was just a girl from the West Village that wanted to make Somewhere, it wouldn't happen. Yeah. You know, because of her success. Not because of who her dad is, because of her movies stand on their own. She's able to get a movie like this greenlit. When people like real filmmakers that have won Oscars have a hard time if it's a bigger budget, because it's a tricky thing, you know, and everybody wants either the big kind of safe Transformer thing or they want these little teeny ones, you know. There's really no in-between anymore. So I'm just really thankful in a time where it's become incredibly harder, I think, for real actors to get movies and do good movies. Even for, I think, the biggest guys, like Clooney's and stuff, you know, I mean, like, it's hard to get the Michael Claytons, you know. That movie was great. Yeah. He was amazing in it. But, you know, where's the next one? It's hard. So I don't know when the next one will come. I'm hoping I don't have to wait as long, though.
Well, I don't think you will. Thanks a lot. That's a great place to leave it. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Good interview.